Om Asatoma Satgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityoma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. I invite Dr. Arun to address the gathering. Dr. Arun Sara will talk about the teaching, and he will start that. After that, we will start the valedictory program, which will be led by Srimati Indra Taneja. Thank you.
Yeah, mic is there. It's just some noise.
Hello. Well, let me start by offering my humble pranams to the most humble Swami I have ever met in my life. Swami Tattvavidananda. I know he doesn't like to be praised, but we cannot tell the lie also. We have to tell the truth. That's an important thing one should remember. Then I want to offer my pranams to other revered Swamis who are present here today, and to all the fellow pilgrims. I don't call you campers, by the way. Camp in my head is a very different type of concept. So I consider you that you are fellow pilgrims. We are on a journey from bondage to freedom, and journey from self to self, from small self to higher self, from what you call as ahankar to aham. Well, you might have noticed that I'm sitting on a chair. There is a reason for that one, by the way. The reason is that what we call as brother donkey, which Swamiji calls it brother donkey, that one has gone around the sun too many times. And going around the sun, one starts getting tired year by year. And just to give you an idea, that the orbit around the sun is 550 million miles. One orbit around the sun. And this has gone many, many times. I'm not going to tell you the exact time, but it has gone through more time than Swamiji, of course. So body really starts getting a little bit tired. The donkey, brother donkey gets tired. Those of you who are not aware of or not know about brother donkey, it is coming from Saint Francis of Assisi. And he really described the body as brother donkey, which we carry with us, And Swamiji agrees with that definition very much. Okay, what I'm going to talk today is about the teaching of Swamiji. I'm not going to summarize this course, by the way. You can summarize yourself. I'm going to really focus on the teaching, and the reason is that Swamiji doesn't consider that he's a teacher, because he says teaching is happening. Like he says, there is no actor, acting is happening. There is no dancer, dance is happening. But for an onlooker, he's still a teacher. So I may say a few words about the teacher also. But if you want to know more about the teacher, my suggestion is that you go to 2nd chapter of Bhagavad Gita and read the last 18 verses. They kind of define him, by the way. That is what 18 verses are on Sthita Prajna, that how they conduct in this world, and whether he tries to do the same thing or it is just happening to him. Because his conduct is not very different from what we find in those 18 verses of Bhagavad Gita in the 2nd chapter. that is being utterly free of desires. I'm just giving an example. And Swamiji, when he teaches that, he talks about that one. And I will try to finish it with an anecdote, so that otherwise people become very serious about it, you know. And if there is some other anecdote pops up in my mind in between, I'll also share that with you. So you have to have some patience and you have to bear with me, because if you expect that I'll go very fast and finish in 10 minutes or so, it's not going to happen. Because at this stage in life, it takes me 5 minutes to say good morning. Okay, let's talk about the teaching, but before I start talking about the teaching, I do want to express my heartfelt appreciation for a very young Swami who has won the hearts and minds, or you can say hearts and heads, of all the seekers here, all the pilgrims here. Swami Tattvavidananda Saraswati. I attended only one of his class. The reason is I need some rest. That's the reason, you know. But I have been hearing such accolades that he actually last day, I believe, he brought people into tears. He was so effective, and he has won the heart of everyone through love and the minds through his teaching of Kaivalya Upanishad. I do want to really mention about our staff here. Want to thank them for making arrangements so that we have a very conducive environment for study of Vedanta in this ashram. That is really good. I don't see Gunanandji, Shantapanandji and all those. So I'm very, very pleased. Now let's go to the teaching part now, teacher and teaching. And basically, you know that when you talk about a teacher of Vedanta, you will find there are hundreds of teachers in this country and outside the country. Some are really good, others are not that good. But there are very few teachers who can be called as great. So those number is really, I would say, they are handful, not more than that. And what is the criteria to really know who is a good teacher? And I am giving you a criteria. This is my criteria, and some of you will agree, others may not agree. A great teacher is one who really creates a feeling of wonder in your heart, who really shakes you up, who creates a feeling of awe. This awe is not fear, by the way. This awe is a feeling of utter amazement. And Swamiji not only meets this criteria, but excels way beyond it. In fact, he really shakes up everyone. I'm sure you agree with me. He shakes up everyone, he creates an impact, mental impact, and he jolts you. It's a big, strong jolt he gives you. By the way, just to tell you, those people who are fond of mathematics and calculus, there is a derivative equation for jolt, and that is d3x over dt cube. You can go and study that, but I just wanted to give you an idea. I'm not going to spend time explaining about calculus. It's very, very fascinating to know about calculus. And why is he doing that? And the funny part I found is that year by year, the force behind his jolt or impact has kept on increasing. So I've been wondering why he's doing it. And it started coming to me is that he wants us to wake up from this waking dream and discover the divinity within us, discover what you call as Godhead within us. Swami Ramatirtha, you know, he has written that why do we need to read Vedanta? He said Vedanta is like a Swapna Simha, that is a dream lion. He said in the dream, if a lion jumps on you, you wake up from the dream. And similarly, Vedanta jumps on you and wakes you up from this waking dream. And Swamiji's teaching, by the way, the impact of that teaching is like that Jagrit Simha, that a lion jumps on you, at least on me it jumps. And then it compels me to do Mananam and Nididhyasana. After going from here, I don't attend other classes, I'm just having the same thoughts are going in my mind, trying to get clarity. If I don't get clarity, I knock on his door, by the way. And he doesn't mind it. That's wonderful, you know. So this is how it goes on. And then he will really keep on, each time he wants you to wake up, he'll keep on telling you things which only a lone voice can say. That's why he claims also that he's a lone voice, and he's a truly lone voice. Only very rare individual will really tell you this thing, that future is utterly unpredictable. Only very rare individual will tell you this thing, that God realization is actually self-realization. Sometimes, you know, basically call this as blasphemy or sacrilege, and which you can really call as heresy, not hearsay. What is hearsay is whatever knowledge you have got. All perceived knowledge, conceived knowledge is all hearsay or secondary knowledge. But religious people do not like to hear that self-realization is God realization. Okay? But he will really convince you, if you have to keep on doing mananam, that you are never born and you never die. The body will go around the sun, you know. By the way, that orbit takes 50 minutes for light to go around. You can imagine, it's a very long orbit, 550 million miles. If you want to convert into kilometers, I'm not used to kilometers, you multiply by 1.6, which makes it 900 million kilometers. Okay, let's talk about the content of his teaching. It's a very unique content. I call this teaching as a multi-dimensional teaching. And I'll tell you why it is needed. Explain to you. This multi-dimensional teaching is really supposed to create a resonance in your heart. And there is a reason this means that he is teaching in one lecture, he is teaching 6 subjects, 7 subjects, or 8 subjects. And I want to take you into some multi-dimension. There is some science coming from me. I can't avoid it, by the way. I have to say something about science. In the field of science, or you can say theoretical physics, and specifically particle physics, and I'm talking about subatomic particles, which comes in the quantum mechanics, there is a theory known as the theory of superstring. Super word doesn't mean God, by the way. Super word really means supersymmetry. And this string, superstring, has got 10 dimensions. And I'll tell you how these 10 dimensions happen. Of course, time is one of the dimensions. So in that one, this superstring is like a rubber ring, a small rubber ring. Small, I'm trying to show you like this. But this is so small that you can't even imagine. If you want to really say 10 raised to minus 100 millimeter, if you want to write, it's that small. And that ring really comes out from what they call as unified field. In Vedanta, we call that unified field as cosmic intelligence, or Mahat. And you can really use Hiranyagarbha along with it, but when we are talking about science, they don't bring the Hiranyagarbha. Yes, cosmic intelligence is there in science also. So this rises like a bubble rises from a pond. And what it does is that it starts vibrating in 10 different modes. You take a ring, you know, small rubber ring, you can really vibrate in many modes. Modes like first bending mode, second bending mode, third bending mode, first torsion, second torsion, third torsion, then combined bending and torsion. Complex modes, which you call it, you know. And when it happens, it creates waves. In all the direction, it creates waves. And by the way, waves and particles are synonymous. They are the same. They are not different. Like when you say Sat is Chit, Chit is Sat. In quantum mechanics, wave is particle and particle is wave. And what it does is it creates 2 sets of particles. The scientists have divided 2 sets of particles. One are known as bosons. And these are the particles which have the name boson has come from Satyendranath Bose, who worked with Einstein. And these are these particles which are like photon is one of them. Then you have a graviton to explain the gravity, you know, general theory of relativity. Then you have other particles which are force-carrying particles, which are known as mesons and gluons. These are the one which really keep on moving from one part of the neutron to another part of the neutron, or one part of the proton to another part of the proton. And all the particles which are photon-like particles, they have no mass because they travel at the speed of light. Anything which travels at the speed of light cannot have a mass. The other set of particles are known as fermions. They came from Enrico Fermi. Those people who are from Italy, they know about Enrico Fermi. Was one of the greatest scientists ever born. And he really started what you call the chain reaction in a reactor in Chicago, about 1940 or so. His equipment was really known as Pile 1. It's a very famous experiment, by the way. And these fermions are further divided into what they call as quarks and leptons. The quarks are the ones which really are which create the nucleons, which Swamiji talked about nucleons. Protons and neutrons are all nucleons. They are within the nucleus. And they join and create protons, and they create neutrons there. And leptons are the ones which are not affected by the nuclear forces, like you have got electrons, muons, and neutrinos. I'm not going into details of that one. But I'm just trying to show you that a 10-dimensional superstring creates vibrations which go through the entire universe, those vibrations. Similarly, Swamiji also by his multi-dimensional teaching creates vibrations. And depends on what your subject is. If you are a physicist, then he will create vibration about space-time. He'll shake you up. If you are into philosophy, he'll create vibration talking about the Indian philosophy, all 6 Astic philosophies and also Gnostic philosophies. And he will also talk about Western philosophy to you. Western philosophy, he has many favorites, by the way, in Western philosophy also. One is Bishop Berkeley, Esse est percipi, which really translates to Drishti Srishti Vada. He will also talk about a priori. In some of the courses, he keeps on using the same thing over and over. A priori is coming from Immanuel Kant, the critique of pure reasoning. And he'll also talk about Aldous Huxley. And sometime I have seen he has talked a lot about syllogism, which is coming from Aristotle, who was the guru of Alexander the Great. And if you are in the field of, let's say, literature, he'll talk about Shakespeare. King Lear, he'll talk about it. Othello, he'll talk about that. If you are into history, he will take you to First World War and then Second World War. He has studied in great details. It creates a vibration. A person who is a historian wants to hear this. And he'll start with the Archduke of Austria and Hungary's assassination, Ferdinand's assassination, which started the First World War. Swamiji, I've heard these things from you. That's what. So this really creates in a history buff, this creates a lot of vibration inside the body, inside the mind. And if you are really talking about some other subjects, if you are talking about chemistry, if you are talking about other type of, let's say psychology, which he knows psychology in and out, lot more than all psychologists combined. And Sanskrit, if you talk about, he can keep on talking on those subjects forever. As they say, he can keep on talking about them until the cows come home. He can talk and talk a lot about it. So all those really create vibration. That means everyone gets shaken up. And everyone is compelled to do mananam and nididhyasana because of that. Okay, I'll now a little bit talk about what he gave a message in this particular course. I don't call it a camp, Swamiji, I call it a course. Camp is not a wonderful word. We are all pilgrims, In this one, he has talked about love. And he has talked about fearlessness. Let's talk about love. Love he has defined many times before also. He's talking about universal love. He's talking about love which he calls is a scalar love, which goes in all the directions. That's scalar love. That is what is a cosmic, universal or godly love. He's not talking about vector love. Vector love is attachment, because every vector has an opposite vector. which you call as aversion. And he says this love is a unifying principle. A unifying principle which unites all the conscious beings. It's like a unifying principle of gravity, which unites all the material world. It glues up the material world. And he says there are only two unifying principles in this whole universe. And scientifically it makes a lot of sense. And when it comes to fearlessness, many years back I asked him a question. I said there is a person, whom I call fearless person, is standing on the edge of a cliff. What would you call that person? That fearless person? He said, he will not call him a fearless person, he'll call him a stupid person. That's the answer he gave me this thing. Fearless person, he said, is one who is not worried about the future at all. Who does not really believe in any of the superstition, is beyond all superstitions. The one who does not seek anything at all. Utterly desireless, and also does not have any feeling of otherness. This is what he told me about it. I hope he remembers it. Well, I happen to have a friend whom I met after 50 years. Of course, he had retired. I had also retired. Both have retired from profession, I'm saying. So that individual retired from the army and was in a very high position somewhere, brigadier, major general or whatever it is. So I really was talking to him and he said he becomes fearless by taking 3 bags of whiskey every evening. He becomes fearless. He said, why do you want to really read Vedanta? I become fearless every day. But he did not tell me how he feels next morning. He didn't tell me that, An anecdote has popped up in my mind that what he really, that when he was talking about it, I remember a joke which was told to me a long time back about a mouse. That there was a mouse which was looking for food in a brewery. We are talking about intoxication, In a brewery, and it so happened that while looking for a food, it fell into one of the kegs or vats where the beer is filled up. And of course he drank quite a bit of beer from there. Somebody saw it and pulled the mouse from the tail and threw it out. That mouse really got up like a fearless mouse. And he says, "Kahan hai Billy? Where is the cat?" Now I'll go to the last anecdote and finish here, and it's about some Swamis, It so happened that there was a person in Delhi, software engineer, very devoted to God, had a temple also in his house. Like many people have a temple, small room, temple. And he was married for a year or so. His wife was working somewhere else in Hyderabad. Swamiji is from Hyderabad, so and she was also a software engineer. Both are working, long distance marriage, And he was walking toward the parking lot to get into his car. And while walking, he was looking at his phone, like they always do, iPhone. He's looking at it, and suddenly he heard a sound, a rock fell in front of him. So he really looked at it, and he found just next to the rock, there was an open manhole. So he felt, oh, thank God this rock has come. Otherwise I would have fallen into that manhole and died. Okay, he got back into his car, and then as he was driving, suddenly one of the metro bridge fell. Those things fall also, by the way. Metro bridge have fallen many times. That bridge fell and he got saved. So he again thanked God that again I have been saved. There is some power which is saving me. He went back to his house, went into the temple. Sat down in the temple, he said, "Oh Lord, I know I'm your devotee, but in one day you have saved my life twice." A voice came from the Lord. He said, I take care of my devotees. Whenever they are in danger, I warn them. And that's why I warned you. Both the time you got saved. He said, I am a devotee for 25 years, but you did not warn me when I was getting married. He said, I did warn you, by the way, but you did not really understand the message. He said, you warned me? No, I don't remember anything. You did not throw a rock on my, marriage ceremony or anything like that. But he said, do you remember that just before the marriage you met a Swami? A Swami, very handsome, very tall Swami. And that Swami was happy all the time. You saw that happiness, that cheerfulness, prasadam in that Swami. And did you not get a message? This person said, oh my God, I missed that message. The message was that if you want to be eternally happy, you have to become a Swami. Well, and then that God said, do you remember that Swami? He said, yeah, of course I remember that happy Swami. How can I forget that Swami? I remember that Swami very well. His name is Swami Tattvavidananda Saraswati. And by the way, I wanted to tell you this thing in my first version of this anecdote. Swami TV was that Swami. Thank you very much for your patience. God bless you.